Today's video is about making money. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna use my fancy new pen and teach you guys how to turn this reasonably sized dollar sign into a slightly bigger dollar sign. And that's right, we're talking about exploiting today. But before we can get into exploiting, we have to do a quick rundown of what GTO is. So GTO is game theory optimal, and what it means is your strategy is chosen in such a way that your opponent can't make any adjustments to gain more EV. And a consequence of this is that if they make deviations from their own GTO strategy, you're going to make money off of those. So GTO is guaranteed winning against a non-perfect opponent in a rake-free environment. Okay, but how exactly, because like people they're like, oh, GTO doesn't make any money, but how exactly, or how good exactly is game theory optimal? GTO, it's really good. Libratus crushed elite heads-up players for 18 BB per 100. And a person who worked on the Libratus project said that Libratus would lose to a true GTO bot by another 18 BB per 100. Like, that's just absolutely destroying. But if that win rate isn't good enough for you, then we're going to get into exploiting. So, exploiting, it sounds like free money, right? Any deviation your player or your opponent makes away from GTO, if you deviate like the other way, you can capture some of that extra EV. And it sounds like free money, right? Well, guys, there's no such thing as free money. That's something I've learned. So, there are two major problems when trying to exploit someone. The first problem is that we can make the wrong assumption. Like, oh, this guy is too passive, so I'm just gonna, or he's too cally, so I'm just never gonna bluff. Well, if he's not, you're leaving a lot of EV on the table. Or the other problem is that you get counter exploited. So you could make the wrong assumption against a bad player, mess up, or you could make the right assumption, but the other person is one step ahead and you're in the cat and mouse game. You try to outplay Phil Galfond and he's like 3 steps ahead. And so that's another danger of being of exploiting, is that you get counter exploited. But the thing is, like, so what if I get counter exploited? How bad can it be? Well, guys, it can get really bad. So if you make a huge adjustment to pick up a small amount of EV from your opponent's deviation, you're taking a huge risk for a tiny reward. So the classic and perfect example of this, never goes out of style, I first read it on the GTO Range Builder blog. You guys can go check that out if you want, is if you're playing an opponent in rock, paper, scissors for money, and let's say they do scissors 40% of the time, so ahead of, or too frequent over the 33% GTO frequency. So they do scissors 40%, and you just fucking hammer them with rock. You're doing rock 100% because you're exploiting them. It takes, so you're picking up a tiny bit of like money each time you do it because they do scissors a little too frequently, and you're just fucking hammering them with rock. Well, if that person makes any adjustment, like, oh, this guy's played rock 900 times in a row, maybe I should play paper a few times in a row, they just automatically recapture all the EV they lost because their mistake was small and you made a huge adjustment to try and take advantage of that. So, how do we apply these concepts to poker? Well, we have two huge obstacles to overcome with poker. Sorry, my chair costs like $5. It's really busto. We have two huge obstacles to overcome. Obstacle number one, poker. It's not rock, paper, scissors. It's very complex. Like, sometimes the mistakes aren't clear. Like, I don't know if he's doing something wrong. And even if I do know he's doing something wrong, I don't always know the correct answer of how to exploit that. Like, let's say my opponent isn't folding enough 3-bets. Do I 3-bet more? Do I 3-bet less? I don't know. I do know. We'll get to it later. Okay, and then the other problem. Poker. It's not one-on-one rock, paper, scissors. There are multiple people in a hand, or left to act usually. I mean, I play 6-max. You guys play 6-max or live or whatever you guys do. So there are people behind us who can counter-exploit. They can mess up our whole plan. Like, oh, let's say we isolate to, like, or we call MP versus under the gun, and like an under the gun fish. Well, if other people come along or someone squeezes, like, that's a huge wrench in our exploit. We need to take that into account when making adjustments. Okay, so we have the two obstacles. Poker's hard. Too many players. Let's tackle poker's hard first. So, unfortunately, Like I said, poker, it's really complicated. It's murky. You're not really sure what's going on. I don't know what's going on. If you do, then hit me up, please. I need some help. So, unfortunately, this means that we can only exploit like large mistakes. Like, let's say the passive fish pot raises us on the river. Okay, then we fold. That's easy. That's a huge like that's a massive mistake on their part by only having like the nuts in their range. So we can fold the second nuts, no big deal. But unfortunately, most spots in poker isn't the passive fish raising you on the river. It's a lot of like, oh, do I c bet here? Do I call? I don't know what's going on. But there is a caveat to this. And the caveat is that the more familiar you are with the GTO solution, then the smaller the mistake we can take advantage of. So, like normally, like if I'm on the river, I'm going to try and play as close to optimal as I can because I don't know what the optimal river looks like. I don't know what it looks like that well. So I'm going to try not to make any huge adjustments. So like if someone bets like, oh, I have a blocker and a pretty good like high up in my range, I'm just going to call. Because like I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So the safe play is to play GTO. But if you are familiar with the GTO solution, like we all are pre-flop, then you can start making fine adjustments and frequent adjustments because you know what the other player is supposed to be doing. And you can be sure that your adjustments are good. Like I can't really make an adjustment on like the turn or the river because I don't know what the solution looks like, so I don't have like a strong starting point. But if you have the matrix for preflop and you know exactly what it's supposed to look like, you can make like, oh, I'll call a few more combos here, or I'll 3-bet a little bit wider here, because you know exactly what the solution looks like, so you know what mistakes looks like, and you know where to adjust from. And also, this kind of leads me to another point, is a little sidebar here, where people talk about, oh, I'm an exploitative player, oh, I'm a field player. Like, I don't know what that means. Like, either you're playing good poker or you're playing bad poker. And like, oh, I don't need to know GTO because I'm exploitative. That's like absolutely retarded because you make more money by knowing the GTO solution, so you see their mistakes and you know where to adjust from, than if you didn't fucking know at all. Like, there's good poker and there's bad poker, and it's just, I can't even stand it. Like, it's too much. So, obstacle 2. There are a lot of fucking players in the hand, and they can ruin our plan of exploiting the bad player. So how do we overcome this? Well, the solution's straightforward. First, what you want to do is you want to move your exploits to later positions. So only like big blind, small blind, button, that's where you're going to want to start expanding your ranges and stuff. But if it's MP or under the gun, like, come on. So good example here. Under the gun fish opens, you're an MP. Yeah, you want to cold call a little bit wider because you want to get in the mix with the bad player. But a lot of other people behind who can get in the mix, they can squeeze. That's a dangerous place to start risking a lot of money, so maybe expand slightly. On the other hand, you're in the big blind, under the gun fish opens, and it folds around to you. Well, here's your chance to really expand your range to get in the mix with the fish a lot more, because no one can fuck with you. Like, you're there. Like, you get to play heads up with the fish now. This is the dream come true. Like, those guys back in 2015 defending 100% of their big blinds, like, they were crushing from the big blind. And that's because they had a huge edge. So, like, it is profitable to call wider in the big blind versus players you have an edge over. So that's a place to expand, but it's not as profitable to call when there are a bunch of players behind that can squeeze or cold call themselves and capture some of that EV you're trying to get. So we have like the theory down now. And our theory is avoid high risk, low reward spots. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to first, if you're unfamiliar with the GTO solution in a situation, don't start making huge adjustments to perceived weaknesses that you don't even know anything about. But if you are familiar with the GTO solution, make small, low-risk adjustments to capture some of that EV without exposing yourself to being wrong or to getting counter-exploited. And focus on the later positions, because it's all about being safe. That's what we're doing here. We're trying not to get fucked. That is lesson 1. Don't get fucked. So, I'm talking a lot. Why don't I show you guys exactly what I mean? So we're going to pull in the matrix here. Yeah, there it is. So what do I mean by expanding, and like how can you use your head a little bit? I made a video where I talked about this wearing a costume and a fake mustache, but we won't get into that. Okay, so let's talk about where we want to expand and where we don't want to expand. All right, we'll go back to our previous example, MP versus under the gun. All right, 50 big blinds deep. Let's look at like our ace-king single suited. Okay, so we have ace-king single suited here. So when there's like a fishy player under the gun, we're going to want to expand our range slightly, like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll add in, let me make this green so it looks like a call. That's not the right green. We'll go this green. So like, oh, I'll add in queen 9, and I'll add in queen 8, jack 8, 9 8. And that's good. You're like good right there, all right? You're adding in some hands that do well multi-way, so if other people come along, which you expect because you're adding, that's good suit, so that's going to be nut suit hands. But you're not going crazy. Like, I see people, when they try to get in the mix, these are like the exploitative players, like the bad regs, that get absolutely wrecked. What they do is when the fish opens, and they all of a sudden they're just like, okay, I'm just going to call every single one of these hands because I want to get in the mix with the fish. And then I'm sitting in the big blind, I just squeeze because they're fucking retarded. Okay, so that's what I mean by expand. So you want to do slight expansion that has low risk because you're not going to get fucked by a short stacker, but high reward because you get to play pots with the fish. All right. Let's look at another example. So let's look at small blind versus button. Jack, jack, double suited. Motherfucker, a stupid fucking pen. Small blind versus button. Jack, jack, double suited. There we go. It's a fucking pen. Okay. So, let's say we're on... So let's say that the button doesn't fold to 3-bets very much. So we're going to get into like a little bit of wrong assumptions here. So another like assumption that is when someone doesn't fold to 3-bets, what you want to do is you want to call more and 3-bet less because that fold equity you have isn't there anymore. But there is a caveat, and the caveat is that mid double suited pairs like jacks actually get 3-bet more when you're facing a player who doesn't fold versus 3-bets. So overall in your range, you call more and 3-bet less, but some hand types actually become more 3-bets, and this is that hand type. And this also goes into when you're exploiting someone, you don't know what you're doing, you can easily be giving up EV. So if you're not playing GTO, so you're like, oh, maybe I'll just call Jack Jack 10-2 or Jack Jack 10-3 instead of 3-betting because I know I'm supposed to 3-bet less. But then you're giving up EV and you're actually playing worse. So this goes to make sure your assumptions are right and make sure you know what you're doing. All right. Anyways, so if I were to be against a player who's like opening too wide, not folding to enough 3-bets, I'm going to want to expand my Jack Jack double suited range because I know specifically that we are supposed to 3-bet these hands more. So what I mean by edge is like you take this 9-4, you throw it in there. 8-4, sure. 9-3, sure. 7-4, 6-4, sure. That's what I mean by expand your range. I don't mean start 3-betting all of these. Okay? Because when you do that, you're just like you're going crazy. I'm not even sure you can go that wide. Like when you're really getting out in left field when you start making huge adjustments that rely on a lot of assumptions. And we can't even be sure those assumptions are right. And I'll be honest with you guys, you aren't as good at poker as you think you are. You think you have an edge, you think you're going to do great no matter what hand you play, but the truth is that you're going to be making losing plays when you make huge adjustments. Now, one last point I want to make that I already made in my old man video, but I'll make it again here, is that you want to expand to the correct hands as well. Like I saw a hand on the Jane Anda's Discord a while ago where someone was like, oh, the button's really loose. So I 3-bet him with like fucking 10-8, 6-5 double suited down here. Like, oh, I'm expanding my range. But you don't want to expand your range with hands that don't perform well against a wide range that doesn't fold. So we just forget about these hands. Let's get rid of this. Don't look at that anymore. So don't expand to low double suited hands. Expand to hands that are going to like dominate your opponent or have really good equity against his range, like the mid double suited like jacks and queens, or some stronger high card hands like ace king, whatever you want to expand that. Ace king good, not like ace king 7-9. Don't expand to that. That requires fold equity. So it's getting long, getting a little rambly. So I'm going to wrap it up here, but basically the point is make small adjustments if you know the GTO solution. Otherwise, don't fuck with it unless it's like a huge obvious spot. Then yeah, then you want to get in there and make that money. Like we want to make our little dollar sign into a bigger one. So we do want to pick up the extra EV, but you don't want to risk going over here and going broke because you're fucking retarded. Alright. That's going to do it for me. This is a lot of fun for me to make these videos to get my thoughts out so we can, because I have to organize it, I have to make notes. So I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys did too, and I'll see you next time.